Hey everybody, Jake here from Bearded Gear, and it's full review time on this bad boy. This is the Benchmade Mini Adamas, and it's a new knife in Benchmade's lineup because I think this is the first time they've done a Mini Adamas. I know the Adamas has been a model for a long time, but not only did they make it mini, but they also added CPM Cru-Wear steel and this colorway, which is frankly pretty rad. So I borrowed this knife, let me say that as well. This knife is on loan from my buddy EDC Gear Reviews, Tyler over there, who's been on the podcast and I met up with in Utah. Really cool dude, and I appreciate him loaning this to me. He just, as when I'm filming this today, he posted his full review of my AD20, so you can check that out on his channel. But we did a little switcheroo, and I appreciate it. So his channel will be linked down below. Check him out if you haven't. You probably have if you're watching my channel. He's way bigger than I am on YouTube. But anyway, thanks, Tyler. So this colorway, this steel, this size, all new, right? Which is pretty exciting. This also, if you're familiar with me and my tastes, you'll probably know is one of my favorite colorways. Flat dark earth blade, OD green scales, all black hardware and liners and everything else. It looks sweet. This is the same colorway as the River's Edge Cutlery Spyderco exclusives, which I love. Some people would call it the Desert Warrior. I think Blade HQ does like Desert Warrior versions of things, and they use this colorway. Anyway, I think it looks sweet. I'm super stoked about it. And Cru-Wear is one of my favorite steels. It is stupid tough. It's I think of it as being pretty synonymous with 3V. It's not an edge retention focused steel. It's not a corrosion resistance focused steel. It is a toughness focused steel. And this build feels like a toughness focused build. So I dig it. I love also that this is called the Mini Adamas, and this is just a normal size knife. The Adamas, I've never handled one, I don't think. If I have, I don't particularly remember it. It must be an absolute tank if this is a mini knife, right? Because this is just a normal size knife. 3.5-ish inch blade, full probably 4-inch handle. If I were to guesstimate, it feels robust, and it's not thin, it's not light, it's just kind of tanky. So let's talk about my impressions of this knife. Let's begin with ergos. My big hang up before ever handling one of these was I was worried the jimping was going to ruin it, because I don't like jimping. I would prefer, like, if you were to have me pick, there can either be jimping on every knife or jimping on no knives ever for the rest of your life. I would pick jimping on no knives. I don't want jimping, typically. Every now and then there's some jimping that I like and is good, but more often than not, I'd prefer to not have it. Here, that's kind of still the case. I'd prefer to not have it, but it doesn't ruin it for me, and I was really worried it would, because sometimes Benchmade puts aggressive jimping all over knives, and it does ruin it. This one has the jimping up here, all the way up to the ramp. You've then got it back here, kind of on the butt end of the knife. You've got it down here in that groove on the butt end of the knife, and then again in here, kind of in the forward groove. So 4 major spots of jimping, and thankfully they're just not so aggressive, and it doesn't really bother me. So they passed there, which is the first big hurdle they had to jump over, I guess, for me. Ergos, otherwise, frankly, are quite good. I get 2 fingers up in this kind of front groove, 2 in the groove behind it. Saber grip feels very comfortable. You do have a little bit of a ramp here. You can also just choke forward, put your finger up here, which works quite well because there's a little bit of like a slope leading into it, so it feels pretty ergonomic. Hammer grip is comfortable. Saber grip is comfortable. Reverse grip, comfortable. Actually quite comfortable, frankly. Reverse grip draw cut, sure, it'll work. Forward grip draw cut, also pretty good. So this knife, in any orientation that I put it in my hand, feels pretty comfortable. That's a win. I like the ergos. It's not an ergonomic dream. Again, I'd prefer to not have that jimping. It would make it better for me. Other than that, it's pretty good. It doesn't feel like molded to my hand, but it's comfortable. The clip, I do feel a little bit kind of in the back of my palm, back here, just because the loop over deep carry clip, the way it sits on this knife, sits a little bit proud, but it's not sharp. It's not really bothering me. I just feel that it's there. And I'd frankly way rather have that feeling that the clip is there when I'm holding the knife in my hand and have it actually be deep carry than have it not be deep carry. I will take that trade-off personally. So let's jump right into carry while we're while we're already here. This knife is definitely like primary knife territory for me. This isn't something I'd carry as a secondary. This is a front right pocket primary use knife all day long. As that goes, I mean, it's a little thick, it's a little heavy, but it's not like sharp anywhere. It's not causing any problems in pocket. I do like that it's deep carry. It really only leaves a tiny bit of the knife sticking out, which is nice for how kind of big and menacing this knife kind of is. And yeah, it carries fine. It's not trying to compete with the bug out. Benchmade is going to let the bug out play the bug out game. This is thicker, beefier, and it feels like it in pocket, but it's not uncomfortable to carry. So it doesn't bother me. Shorts, jeans, whatever. It's been no big deal to carry this front right pocket. So not incredible, but totally passable. Let's talk action. So if you're familiar with a Benchmade with the access lock and thumb studs, this is going to feel exactly like every other one ever. It's smooth. It doesn't have any problems. You just grab the access lock from both sides and the blade comes closed. You can also, of course, just grab the access lock and kind of wrist it open like that. You can middle finger flick it with the stud. I like that. I will mention as well the shape of these thumb studs. They're kind of like little cones. They're comfortable. They're easy to use, easy to spider flick. I like that. So the fact that I can middle finger flick this knife is a big plus for me. I don't like it when thumb stud knives, all I can do is use my thumb. It's just, I'd prefer to have more deployment methods. So the fact that I can middle finger flick it definitely helps. It's just, at this point, access lock knives rarely get me excited in terms of how they function. Super functional. I don't have any issues with them in terms of actual use, and I do find they're more fidgety than some lock types. Like the fact that you can just kind of pull on the lock and close it. You don't have to disengage something in like a liner lock or a frame lock where you're then pushing the sharp edge of the blade towards you. Like, I get it. Access locks are smart. They work quite well. I've never had an Omega spring fail. Every time I talk about access locks, somebody in the comments is like, I've had 17 Omega springs fail on Benchmades. It's never happened to me, and I've used Benchmades with access locks a lot, and some of them for very long periods of time. I've never had that issue personally. Maybe I'm doing something wrong to not break them. Maybe the people who are breaking them are doing something wrong. Maybe they're stretching and exaggerating how many of them it's happened to. I don't know. I can just say for me, it's never happened. But if it does ever, I'm going to talk about it. It's going to happen. But yeah, so far, no issues with Omega springs, so I don't have any personal reasons to distrust them. I think it's fine. So yeah, action is pretty good. Let's talk cutting performance. So to be totally fair, this knife did not have the greatest edge on it when it was loaned to me. I did strop it one time just to kind of bring it back a little bit because Tyler had been doing some serious testing on this knife. He had been mean to it. And even with the edge not being incredible, I was frankly pretty happy with how this knife cut. It's not insanely thick behind the edge. It's not thin. It's not a super slicey machine either. But for how kind of tough and brutal this knife is, I like that it's a nice tall flat grind, comes up pretty high, and then it gets thin enough. It's also not an insanely thick blade stock. I feel like sometimes on like the beefy knives, they put like stupid thick blade stock, and then it's impossible to get them thin enough to cut things. And this has done pretty well. I've feather sticked with it. I've done a lot of cardboard with it. I've opened internal packaging with it. I've cut a lot of tape with it. I've done my typical EDC stuff basically, plus feather sticking. I did also cut one apple with it, and it did all right. It didn't like just chunk up the apple. It actually sliced it okay. Is it the best slicer? Again, no. Not even close. But it's totally passable. And this to me feels like a pretty good hybrid of a knife that would make a lot of sense for somebody who lives kind of a dual lifestyle, frankly kind of like I do, where like I spend a lot of time hiking and outdoors, but I also live in an urban environment most of the time. If you're somebody who lives that kind of duality but wants to carry the same folder for both, this is honestly a knife that can do both and will do both well. And like, I think it would be a great choice for it. For me, the difference is like, I have so many folders that I'll just, while I'm in the urban environment, I'll carry a knife that fits that a little bit better. And then if I'm going outdoors, then I'm putting something in my pocket that's more outdoorsy. I don't necessarily need a bunch of overlap between those two worlds because I just have so much gear that like I can just pick which gear I bring. But yeah, I think this knife is kind of a good blend between outdoorsy and still being an EDC knife, because it doesn't suffer at being an EDC knife. It's still totally functional. I don't think Cru-Wear is like the best steel choice for somebody who is like opening a ton of boxes and processing cardboard, because then you'd probably do better to have more edge retention than you would toughness. But that said, Cru-Wear is still fine on edge retention. It's not a problem, right? And so it's just like, it's a knife that can go really, really far, but feels comfortable enough to carry and use when you're just doing normal stuff too, which is nice. So yeah, I think honestly, in essence, I talked about this a little bit in my first impressions, but I'm just glad that Benchmade is playing this game right now. They've been discontinuing some heavy hitter models lately, things that I liked a lot, and I think the enthusiast market liked a lot. But they're also coming out with cool stuff. Like, they've really been ramping up the bug out. The bug out is no longer just S30V in plastic. You can get S90V in carbon, and you can do their custom builder, or there's like dealer exclusives and G10 ones, and there's a lot of cool bug outs that are out now, and that's a great knife. My bug out full review, long-term review that I did towards the beginning of my channel, because I'd already had it a long time, is one of my most viewed videos ever. People love the bug out, and rightfully so. It is one of the most disappear in your pocket, lightweight, so easy to carry everywhere type of knives that exists. So I think Benchmade is doing well to like keep pushing that forward. And then the fact that they're playing with steels a little bit now. They're using Cru-Wear, an M4, and like they've been using some M4 20CV. They've been using some things, but Cru-Wear I think is pretty new for them, at least from what I perceive. Especially on a folder. I don't know, maybe they've done a fixed blade in it or something, but the fact that this one is just an off-the-shelf offering and a really cool colorway in Cru-Wear is sweet. I hope that this continues to be well received, and I hope that Benchmade notices that and likes that and keeps doing things like this, because I would like Benchmade better if they were playing more of the enthusiast game. And obviously, that's selfish. I'm sure Benchmade probably sells way more knives to non-enthusiasts than they do to enthusiasts. But I'm one of the enthusiasts, so selfishly, I want them to make more enthusiast-focused knives. And this feels like one. This makes a lot of sense. If you're somebody who doesn't know what blade steels are, or what the differences are, or anything like that, you're probably not going to justify the extra money. Maybe if you really love the color on this one. But like, if you don't know what Cru-Wear is, this isn't the Benchmade you're going to pick, right? But for the people who do, they probably will. I think it's absolutely worth it. I think it's really cool. So I don't know, now that I've experienced one of these as a loaner, if I'll end up purchasing one for myself. I feel like it's very rare for me to do that, because it just feels like I've already experienced it. There's a lot more I still need to experience. So buying something I've already experienced feels a little weird. But maybe. I do like this a lot. I think it's my favorite Benchmade I've tried out in quite a while. I've loved the Super Freak, the Anthem, the Mini Super Freak was fantastic. The bug out is great. There are a few really good knives in Benchmade's lineup, but this is one of them now. I got no problem recommending this knife. It's pretty cool. So again, EDC Gear Reviews will be linked down below. Thank you so much, buddy, for loaning this to me. And thank you all for checking it out. I'll see you on the next one.